Football! Football!
Has this ever happened to you? You see someone who's clearly exploiting the rules by releasing their disc when their feet are millimeters off of the ground. No? You haven't really seen that? And then all the round coverage with the pros, and you can go frame by frame through the footage, and you think you might see that their feet are off the ground by the time the disc is still in their hand. Why aren't any of the pros calling those foot faults? Well, if getting that timing down is a problem for you, make sure you keep watching this video. And even if you're not, just watch the video anyway. You might learn something. Let's just jump into it. Get it because jump putts? Oh yeah, I went there. So before we talk about jump putts, let's talk about drives and putts separately. Okay, Rule 802.07a says, when a disc is released, the player must have at least one supporting point that is in contact with their lie. And then it goes on to list other things, but that's the part that we're worried about right now. So if you're throwing off of the tee, or if your disc is marked in the fairway and you're throwing there, you have to have 1 foot behind your lie while you're throwing it. Okay, that's important, remember that. So the next rule is 806.01a says, any throw made from within 10 meters of the target is a putt. And the B part says, after having released a putt, the player must demonstrate full control of balance behind the marker disc before advancing towards the target. A player who fails to do so has committed a stance violation and receives 1 penalty throw. So what that means is, if you're closer than 10 meters to the target, beyond having to have 1 point in contact with your lie, you also have to demonstrate balance behind your lie before you can go get your disc out. But what if you're farther than 10 meters away from the target and you still want to try and make it? Well, that's where a jump putt comes in. To do a jump putt, you do roughly your normal putting motion, you just use a lot more power coming from your legs. Inside the circle, most people use a lot of upper body and very little lower body so that they don't fall forward and commit a foot fault, which is generally what's called if you don't demonstrate balance behind the lie. It's a casual term for a stance violation. But if you're farther than 10 meters away, you can use a lot of power from your legs, and that means your arm doesn't have to do as much work. When I'm jump putting from 35 or 40 feet, I'm not throwing the disc with my arm much harder than I would like a 20-foot putt. But the rest of the power comes from my legs because I can push so strongly with both of my legs, that's going to get the disc to the target, and I can just focus on being accurate with my arm rather than throwing it as hard as I can. Hang on, I'm going to grab a disc so I stop talking with my hands so much. The issue that some people have with jump putts is that you have to have that 1 point in contact with your lie when you release the disc. And it can look like some people will jump closer to the target and then let go of the disc to try and get closer so they can try and make it. But if you were paying attention, you know that the power from the jump putt comes from your legs. And if you're already in the air, your legs aren't still pushing and adding that power. So it's actually really hard to make a jump putt if you don't do it correctly and push with your legs as you're throwing the disc. If you're trying to learn how to jump putt, try focusing less on actually jumping and getting in the air and focus more on pushing with your legs as you're throwing, and let the jump be almost a result of that. So that's the rough how-to and a little bit of the controversy for jump putts. Let's talk about different ways to jump putt. I like to straddle jump putt because I can push with both of my legs equally. When I would do a staggered stance jump putt, I found that because my right leg was a little bit more compressed than my left, it was a little bit harder to gauge how much to push with each. When I straddle, I can just push with both of my legs equally, and it's made me a lot more consistent on those jumpers. Another way to do it is a staggered jump putt. That's where you line it up sort of like a normal putt with your right foot in front of your left if you're right-handed, or your left foot in front of your right if you're I'm gonna stick to righties here. Lefties, I love you, but just flip right and left, okay? Okay? All right. So right foot in front of the left foot, and then you sort of hop forward just a little bit as you throw the putter. I think it's a lot harder to get as much power on a staggered jump putt, but a lot of people are much more comfortable that way. And then the third way is kind of a more controversial way to do it, and that's called a step putt. That's where as you throw the disc, rather than jumping, you take another step and you step in front of your mini so you actually are closer to the target, and then you push with your right foot as you throw the disc forward, and that gets you a little bit closer to the target, and it can help add that little bit of power to help you make it. All right, so some more tips for jump putts. It can be helpful to use a little bit of a glidier and a little bit of a straighter putter from outside the circle. Lots of people will use a more seasoned, a more beat up version of their normal putter for the outside the circle putts because those tend to be a little bit straighter and a little bit glidier. Personally, I've been using the Guard lately. The Guard is very similar to a Warden, it's just a little bit deeper, and so it has a little bit of extra float, which helps me make those longer putts feel like they're a little bit shorter and lets me keep a little bit of control. So that's a little bit about how to jump putt. Let's talk about how to call a foot fault for somebody who's doing it illegally. So if somebody is step putting and their front foot is very clearly hitting the ground or their back foot is very clearly lifting before the disc leaves their hands, that's a foot fault. So you can call a foot fault, a stance violation, or anything like that. If you're playing on a card at a sanctioned event, you're going to have at least 3 people. You need to have at least one other person who also saw it verify it. It's called a second. So if somebody on my card foot faulted and I say, man, that's a foot fault, I'm sorry, dude. The next guy would be like, yeah, I saw it too, I seconded it. And then that person would get a penalty stroke. So rather than writing down a 2 on the hole, they would write down a 3. Now the rules are a little bit different if the card is being recorded. If you see a foot fault on round coverage, especially Jomez, make sure you don't bother going through frame by frame. Immediately go to the comments with a timestamp. And if that comment gets over 1,000 likes, that player will have to forfeit their winnings and send you a free disc. Guaranteed. No, please don't. All of the pros know that to jump putt effectively, you have to be doing it legally. That's why the rules are the way that they are. So that's why they didn't call the foot fault. Making a comment isn't going to help anything. But, I mean, if you want to keep doing it, go right ahead. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, everyone. I'm going to edit this video, and then I'm going to go live on Twitch if you want to come hang out. I might play some Fortnite. I might play some Apex. Who knows? We have a good time over there. Remember to check out YouTube if you're on Facebook, and Facebook if you're on YouTube. And always remember, slow is smooth, and smooth is far.